Hello everyone, my name is Jamie Thacker and today I'll be presenting on one of the most fundamental tools in server security, SSH. This protocol is essential for system administrators who need to manage remote systems securely. Throughout this presentation, I'll walk through what SSH is, how it works, why it's significant in server security, the most common vulnerabilities it faces, and several key hardening techniques that can protect systems against real-world attacks. SSH might seem simple on the surface, but it's often the difference between a secure environment and one that's wide open to compromise. Here is a quick overview of what I'll be covering today. We'll start with a brief introduction to SSH, what it is and what purpose it serves in modern networks. Then we'll look at how SSH actually works, including the technical mechanisms that make it secure. After that, we'll move into its significance and why it plays such a major role in protecting servers and data. Next, I'll go over common vulnerabilities and configuration mistakes that can make SSH less secure than intended. Finally, I'll explain 3 practical hardening steps administrators can use to strengthen SSH on their systems, followed by key takeaways and references. Let's dive into the overview of SSH. SSH stands for Secure Shell. It is a cryptographic network protocol that provides a secure channel for communication between a client and a server. SSH was developed as a secure replacement for older, unencrypted remote login tools like Telnet and RLogin, which transmitted all data, including usernames and passwords, in plain text. By contrast, SSH encrypts everything that passes between client and server, protecting it from interception or tampering. SSH typically operates on port 22, though some administrators change that port to avoid automated scans. It is used for logging into remote machines, executing commands, transferring files, and managing networks securely over untrusted connections like the internet. The most common implementation of SSH is OpenSSH, which comes pre-installed on most Linux distributions and is widely available for Windows servers as well. SSH provides not only convenience for administrators, but also a critical layer of security for maintaining systems remotely. To understand SSH, it is helpful to look briefly at how it works under the hood. SSH uses a client-server model where the client initiates a connection and the server runs a background process known as the SSH daemon, or SSHD. When a connection request is made, the two sides begin with a cryptographic handshake to establish trust and agree on encryption algorithms. During this handshake, they exchange public keys and generate a shared session key that's used for symmetric encryption, meaning that once the secure channel is established, both sides use the same key to encrypt and decrypt traffic. SSH actually relies on a combination of symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Asymmetric encryption, involving public and private key pairs, handles authentication and key exchange, while symmetric encryption secures the actual data session. This combination gives SSH both security and performance since symmetric encryption is fast and asymmetric encryption provides strong identity verification. OpenSSH, the most common version of SSH, includes several key components. The SSH command provides the client interface for connecting to remote hosts. The SSHD service listens for incoming requests on the server side. SCP and SFTP enable secure file transfers, while SSH keygen is used to generate and manage encryption keys. Together, these components make SSH a powerful tool for both system administration and automated processes that require secure communication. SSH's significance in server security cannot be overstated. It is the backbone of secure remote management and one of the most frequently used protocols in enterprise environments. Nearly every cloud instance, Linux server, and networking device depends on SSH for administrative access. From a security standpoint, SSH provides confidentiality, integrity, and authentication, 3 pillars of information security. Confidentiality ensures that transmitted data, including credentials and configuration commands, cannot be read by outsiders. Integrity ensures that data isn't modified in transit. And authentication verifies that both the client and the server are who they claim to be. SSH is also vital for compliance. Many frameworks, such as NIST 853, HIPAA, and PCI DSS, explicitly require encrypted administrative access. Without SSH or an equivalent secure channel, organizations would fail to meet basic compliance standards. Another key reason SSH is so significant is that it enables automation safely. In DevOps and cloud environments, tasks like configuration management, deployment, and monitoring are often automated using tools like Ansible, Jenkins, or Terraform, all of which rely heavily on SSH keys for secure, unattended access. That means a single misconfiguration in SSH can compromise entire automated workflows. In short, SSH is a foundational part of server security, not only for protecting data in transit, but also serving as the entry point for nearly every administrative action taken on a server. Despite its strengths, SSH can still become a security liability when it's poorly configured. Most vulnerabilities associated with SSH aren't flawless in the protocol itself, but rather errors in setup or weak security practices. One of the most common risks is the use of default or weak passwords. Attackers often run automated brute force scripts that continuously guess passwords on port 22 until they find a match. If root login is enabled, which it often is by default, the attacker doesn't even have to guess the username. Outdated versions of OpenSSH also present risks. Older releases may contain vulnerabilities that have been patched in newer versions, so failing to update regularly can leave a server exposed. Another issue is unrestricted access from all IP addresses. Allowing SSH connections from anywhere makes it easy for attackers across the internet to attempt brute force attacks. Limiting SSH to trusted IP ranges or internal VPN connections dramatically reduces this risk. Finally, a lack of proper logging or brute force prevention can make SSH attacks invisible. Without monitoring tools like fail2ban or regular review of var log auth.log, administrators might not realize they're being targeted until it's too late. Essentially, the biggest threat to SSH isn't the protocol itself. It's human error in configuration and maintenance. To reduce these risks, there are several proven hardening strategies that can make SSH far more secure. I'll focus on 3 of the most effective ones. First, disable root login. By editing the SSH configuration file located at etc ssh sshd config, administrators can change the setting permit root login from yes to no. After saving and restarting the SSH service, root access is blocked entirely. This forces users to log in using their own accounts and escalate privileges through sudo only when necessary. Doing this adds an extra layer of accountability and makes brute force attacks significantly harder, since attackers must now guess both a valid username and password combination. Second, use key-based authentication instead of passwords. Keys are far stronger and less susceptible to brute force attacks than traditional passwords. You can generate a key pair using the command sshkeygen TED25519, which creates a public and private key. The public key is placed on the server in the user's /.ssh/authorizedkeys file, while the private key stays securely on the client device. To take this a step further, disable password authentication altogether by setting password authentication to no in the SSH configuration file. This ensures that only users with valid keys can connect. Third, restrict access and enhance logging. Changing the default port from 22 to something less common like 2222 won't stop a determined attacker, but it does reduce the noise from automated scanners. Limiting access to specific IP ranges using the allow users or allow groups directives or a firewall policy is another effective measure. Finally, enabling detailed logging helps identify and respond to suspicious login attempts. Administrators can review failed logins, monitor authentication patterns, and quickly spot brute force activity. Taken together, these 3 steps, disabling root login, enforcing key-based authentication, and restricting access, drastically reduce the attack surface of SSH. They're considered essential best practices for any secure server deployment. To wrap up, let's discuss some key takeaways. SSH remains one of the most critical protocols in server administration. It provides a secure, encrypted method for remote access, configuration, and data transfer, functions that nearly every IT environment relies on daily. However, because SSH is so widely used, it is also one of the most targeted services by attackers. The best defense lies in proper configuration. Small actions like turning off root login, using keys instead of passwords, and restricting who can connect make a huge difference. Regularly updating OpenSSH monitoring logs and following compliance frameworks like CIS or NIST can ensure that your systems remain resilient against both automated and targeted attacks. When implemented and maintained properly, SSH forms a secure foundation for managing servers in any environment, from small business networks to global cloud infrastructure. In cybersecurity, consistency and simplicity often equal strength, and SSH hardening perfectly reflects that principle. Here are the references I used for this presentation. Together, these resources reinforce the same core message. SSH is secure by design, but only when configured and maintained responsibly. This concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.